Hi, we're group 2, and we will be discussing chapter 9 today, which is decision making and problem solving in groups. I'm Francesca, and my group mates are Abel, Sophia, Amy, and Akshay. So basically, in this chapter, we will be discussing 5 key topics, which is understanding group decision making and problem solving, group decision making, group problem solving, creativity and problem solving realities. So the first section we were talking about is 9.1, which is understanding group decision making and problem solving. So two key terms I do want to discuss are decision making and problem solving. So decision making is basically making a judgment, choosing an option, and then like making a decision based on those options. It's basically a choice between alternatives, or it could be asking what, where, who, when. For example, like, should I spend today? Should I save money today? Should I eat this? Should I not eat this? Or it could be questions like, who is coming? Where is the event? And what time is the event? Another key term is problem solving, which is like a process where the groups make decisions to like analyze the problem and make a plan for that problem in order to either reduce the effects or to diminish it completely. And yeah, the process is basically to analyze the problem, develop the options, debate pros and cons, select and implement the solution. So the first section in this, the first subsection in this section is developing a clear goal. So groups are more effective when they have a clear goal because it answers the question, why are we doing this? And kind of unifies the group. So in this situation, you should always ask questions. There are two types of questions you should ask, which are single question format and sub-questions. So the first one is a single question format, which basically approaches group analysis based on answering a single agreed upon question in order to get to a solution. So in order to do this, members should identify A, the central issues raised by the question, B, the information based on expert opinions to make well-founded decisions, and C, criteria to make or to select a good solution. And this is the same subchapter continued. So the next type of questions you should be asking are sub-questions, and there are 4 types. There's questioning of fact, questions of conjecture, questions of value, and questions of policy. So the first one is questions of fact, and it basically asks if something is true or false, and like verifies the validity of the statement, such as like whether like something occurred, if it didn't, and if what caused that to happen. The second one is questions of conjecture, and if this asks whether something will happen and the possibility of it happening in the future again, based on facts, data, and expert opinions. The next one is questions of value. It asks, is this worth it? Is it good, bad, moral, immoral, right, or wrong? And then there's questions of policy, and it asks if what action you should take next and implement it to address the problem. For the second topic, it is quality content. So this basically says that if your group is well informed, then they are more likely to make better decisions. And it is better with accurate information because usually groups find a greater success in this. And some suggestions to approach this is to first ask the group what they know and don't know, like assess the knowledge and see what information you then need to find and research upon. And then after identifying what you don't know, you assign these responsibilities to each team member, and then you set a deadline. So everyone has like set standards on when and by when they should be able to share this information with the rest of the group. So the third section is structured procedures. So a very important quote by Marshall Scott Poole mentions that structured procedures are the heart of group work. It's basically the most powerful tool you have to improve the conduct of meetings. And there are like a lot of types of problem solving procedures. There's the complex based problem solving, creative decision making methods, assessing opinions, and solution implementation. And it's good to maintain a balance between creative thinking as well as the structured procedures. And then the fourth section we will be talking about is commitment to deliberation. Another key term in this section is deliberation, which is group process that calls for good arguments, critical issues, civility, and good decision making. So there should be a general shared commitment in first sharing ideas and info with your other members fairly. The second one is balancing out positions based on supporting evidence, allowing participants equitable speaking opportunities, encourage active listening by all participants when there's a disagreement, as well as understanding, respecting, and adapting to differences among participants' diverse ways of thinking, speaking, and listening. So the fifth one, it is collaborative communication environment. So communication will usually generate a good working environment. And if you have a good working environment, then it sets up your group for greater success. They usually, based on the book, thrive on we will statements, such as we will listen to all points of view, we will ask for facts as well as opinions, we will be tough on issues but not on one another, and we will openly identify and put aside personal biases and agendas. And those are all just examples of we will statements. There are other ones you can come up with, but these generally help groups kind of connect and work in a better environment. So the discussion question for 9.1 is basically just think of a time that you have experienced a problem when working in a group, and how did your group handle that problem, and was it successful, was it unsuccessful? If it was not, how would you approach it now, learning these concepts that I have just talked about in 9.1?
All right. Hello, my name is Abel Velasquez, and I'm going to be doing the part 9.2, which is titled Group Decision Making. The objective of my part is to analyze the advantages and disadvantages of various decision-making methods and decision-making styles. So obviously what I'm going to be going through is those decision-making methods and those decision-making styles. But before that, we need to talk about balance, which is extremely important when talking about group work. Uh, in the book, it says every group must strive for a balance between structure and spontaneity. Um, a quote I pulled from the textbook is, too much independence may shatter group cohesion and encourage members to sacrifice group goals to their individual needs. Too much structured work is likely to regiment group thinking and stifle novel ideas. So basically, too much independence or spontaneity would basically mean someone being too independent and being just focusing more on their own, hidden agendas, as we've talked about, and not being a part of the group, and therefore messing up the group cohesion. But too much structure would be sort of more of an like a more of a dictatorship type thing, where people are really just thinking whatever one person thinks or whatever the general consensus is, and not really being creative with their ideas. So for the first section is the decision-making methods. For the decision-making methods, there are three main ones. The first one being voting, which is the easiest and most obvious way to make a group decision. No other method is as efficient and decisive. However, with votes, there are winners and losers. But voting, of course, works best when a group is pressed for time. The issue is not highly controversial. A group is too large to use any other decision-making method, There is no other way to break deadlock. A group's constitution or rules require voting on certain types of decisions. Just an example of that last one, a group's constitution or rules require voting on certain types of decisions. Obviously, something like a court hearing would require consensus among the jury, which is a different type of thing. But something like voting for the president would require voting, getting a majority, at least in the electoral college, not the popular vote. The two different types of voting are majority vote and the 2/3 vote. So basically, majority vote is just requires 51% or over of the votes, which would of course mean that there can be a little more winners, a little more difference between the winners and losers. But a 2/3 vote would be more absolute, and it would make sure that the majority of people um, agree on the proposal. And the next decision-making method is the consensus, which is a decision that all members have a part in shaping and that all find at least minimally acceptable as a means of accomplishing some mutual goal. Consensus does not mean 100% agreement. Rather, it reflects a sincere effort and willingness to make an acceptable decision that helps the group achieve its common goal. So when achieving a group consensus, table 9.3 helps us out by telling us a couple of things to do and to avoid doing, because a consensus, of course, is something that requires basically a compromise and making sure that everybody is on the same page and not really going too far from that. And so the next decision-making method would be the authority rule. Sometimes groups use authority rule in which a single person within the group or an outside authority makes final decisions for the group. Groups using this method gather information and recommend decisions to another person or to a larger group. Authority rule can have detrimental effects on a group. Members may become demoralized, resentful, or non-productive on future projects. Obviously, an authority rule would mean that somebody has the final say, basically somebody in a higher position. And obviously that isn't good for a group, because you might not get what you want. And that person in power or in charge may not be favor of, may not please everybody that's referring to this person. So it could cause a lot of problems, and it's genuinely better to stick to the other decision-making methods. And now moving on to the decision-making styles. Two related personality traits from the Myers-Briggs type indicator, thinker and feeler, focus on how we make decisions. So thinkers are task-oriented members who use logic when making decisions, whereas feelers are people-oriented members who want everyone to get along, even if it means compromising to avoid interpersonal problems. I think we can all know what that means. We've heard about it in past chapters. Thinkers make decisions and move the group forward, while feelers make sure the group is working harmoniously. And obviously you want a little bit of both to be able to function properly, but if we're all being honest with ourselves, I think we all fall a little more into one than the other. And the other type of decision-making styles are the ones listed below, which Suzanne Scott and Reginald Bruce describe, all of which have the potential to improve or impair group decision-making. So rational decision-making is when makers carefully weigh information and options before making a decision. However, they must be careful not to analyze a problem so long that they never make a decision. Whereas intuitive decision makers sort of just go based off intuition, just go trust their gut and go with that. The other types are dependent decision maker, where they seek the advice and opinions of others before making a decision. They feel, uncomfortable making decisions that others may disapprove of or oppose, sort of, more falling into the feeler category than the thinker. And the next decision maker type is the avoidant decision maker, somebody that doesn't really want to make that final decision, say something like, I just can't deal with this right now. They're uncomfortable and reluctant when asked to make decisions. The last decision maker is a spontaneous decision maker, where they make quick decisions impulsively and on the spur of the moment. When looking at all of these decision-making styles, we've all, I think, surely done some of these more than others, of course, but you want to be more of a rational decision maker, but sometimes it's important to be, spontaneous, and sometimes you want to include other people and make other people happy, to be a little more dependent. And sometimes you just have to be intuitive, trust your gut. But moving on from that.
All right, my name is Soph, and I'm going to be taking care of section 9.3, group problem solving. So as we said previously, structured procedures are the heart of the group work and most powerful tools that we have for improving quality of group work. Some things I'll go over in this section are a small intro to the main 4 problem solving procedures, and then go in more depth with each of them. So that includes brainstorming, nominal group technique, decreasing option technique, and the progressive problem solving method, ending with a small discussion question. To start us off, we need to know that structured procedures have many benefits in group work, which include participation, conflict resolution, organization, and group empowerment. There have been 4 problem solving procedures that have been helpful in group work. And these 4 procedures include, like I said, brainstorming, nominal group technique, decreasing options technique, and progressive problem solving technique. All 4 methods can be used independently or in combination with one another, depending on the nature of the task, the size and expertise of the group, and the need for maximizing input, creativity, and analysis from all group members. So for brainstorming, brainstorming is a structured problem-solving procedure that encourages group members to generate as many ideas as possible in a non-evaluative atmosphere. So about 70% of business people use brainstorming, which is based on 2 key principles. 1, that deferring judgment improves quality of input, and that 2, the quantity of ideas and output breeds quality. So the idea that quantity breeds quality comes from the thought that the first ideas we come up with are usually the most obvious, and that truly creative ideas emerge only after we've gotten the obvious suggestions out of the way. Brainstorming can be chaotic and messy, but it is most effective when a group is looking for lots of ideas. And it's not effective when in a crisis to repair an issue that has a known fix, or when planning. For nominal group technique, this is a technique with 2-phase decision-making process in which individual members engage in fact-finding and idea generation on their own first, followed by an analytical group discussion of and voting on ideas. So to break it down a bit, nominal means existing in name only, meaning that nominal group is, or that a nominal group is a collection of people who at first work individually rather than collectively. And the 2 phases are, 1, that the idea generation phase, where group members generate and record ideas and suggestions, and then 2, evaluating or voting phase, where members discuss each idea before independent voting, and then finally making a group decision. This process guarantees equal and anonymous participation during the idea generation phase and provides opportunities for open discussion and critical evaluation in the second phase. And researchers say that when it comes to generating numerous creative ideas, that the NGT is more effective than brainstorming because there is equal opportunity to contribute, and there's no fear of judgment, and there is a set quality time to think, and then no well thought out ideas that are known to be effective. Now for our decreasing options technique, this is a technique that again, is a problem-solving procedure that helps groups reduce and refine a large number of ideas into more manageable categories. This technique is used to measure levels of agreements among large groups of people, and when a group needs to sort through a multitude of ideas. Another version of this procedure is known as dotmocracy because it helps groups reduce, refine, and prioritize ideas with equal opportunity for input. Now the steps of this procedure are as follows. So 1, to generate ideas, then 2, post those ideas, then 3, sort them, and then lastly to prioritize. And it's a known advantage that this technique is very visual and rewarding since members get to fully engage and experience excitement when they see their contributions posted. And it also allows members to see patterns or the bigger picture because it's posted again. So our last procedure is the progressive problem solving method, which guides a group through a series of systematic problem solving steps, beginning with task clarification, problem identification, fact finding, and issue analysis, followed by solution criteria, limitation, options, evaluation, selection, and then implementation. A problem-solving approach that can help us understand this more is the reflective thinking process, which focuses on understanding a problem before selecting a final solution. The steps taken to understand the problem are bolded in blue, and the steps to select a solution are bolded in green. And for our discussion question, when it comes to generating numerous creative ideas to solve a problem or complete a task, which of the 4 problem-solving procedures is the most efficient and why?
Okay. So my name's Amy, and I'll be going over creativity and problem solving. I like to start off with a quote. When groups engage in creative problem solving, members share imaginative ideas and unusual possibilities. This is by Engelberg and Wynne from the textbook. I'll be going over the 4 basic stages, pros to creative problem solving, and the 3 strategies to enhancing group creativity. Okay, I first wanted to start off with creativity has 2 components. The first being that it's a non-judgmental process of seeking, separating, and connecting unrelated ideas and elements. And then the second component is that it's combining these elements into new ideas. I guess what I really just want to emphasize is that creativity is a really big, like, non-judgmental process because it's the process of like coming up with vulnerable ideas that are out of the ordinary with your group. So it's really important as a group member to be non-judgmental while your group is expressing these out of the ordinary ideas. And then my 4 basic stages to the creative process. So the first one would be investigation. This is when group members gather information and attempt to understand the nature and causes of a problem. This is like the first stage to the 4 basic stages of the creative process. It's very like preliminary. You're basically just gathering information and talking with your group members about the information, but not necessarily solving it yet. And then the second step is imagination. This is when group members engage in free thinking by removing procedural and mental roadblocks. So this is kind of when you come up with those creative ideas and maybe like out of the ordinary ideas with your group members to help get rid of those mental roadblocks or things that may be blocking you from getting to your solution. And then the third stage is incubation. This is when the group allows a period of time in which imaginative ideas can percolate and recombine in new ways. So this is when group members will take time to themselves to kind of like think of the ideas that they went over with their group members. And while doing so, they can come up with new ideas, new ways to solve problems, or just new things to go over for the solution as well. And then the 4th basic stage to the creative process is insight. This is the aha moment that occurs and new approaches or solutions emerge. Solutions don't have to emerge in this stage, but it is important to make new approaches to whatever you're trying to solve. And then these are the pros to creative problem solving. So the pros would be group members participate more, criticize one another less, support new ideas more, exhibit more humor, and produce ideas that are more worthwhile. I think this is really important to note because as a group member during the creative problem solving process, I want to reemphasize that you have to be non-judgmental. And while being non-judgmental, these are all the pros that you can get from doing so. And then I put on the little star, a creative strategy is to rephrase problems as questions and don't shoot down an idea, just to reemphasize the thought process of being non-judgmental. Right, and then my 3 strategies for enhancing group creativity. The first one is to control judgment, which I've kind of been saying the entire time, but is to be open-minded. So basically, not judging what maybe vulnerable idea or out of the ordinary idea your group member is emphasizing during discussion. That's really important. And the second one would be to ask what if questions. So this is in order to gain insight. While asking what if questions, it's a good way to show that you're listening to your group members and controlling that judgment and just showing that you're open-minded to what they're trying to discuss with you and disclose with you. I think, in my opinion, control judgment and ask what if questions go hand in hand because it shows that you're listening. And while doing so, you're understanding and interpreting what they're trying to say. And then using metaphors. This is for explaining and understanding. So the book emphasizes like using language devices as a way of learning and interpreting what they're saying. So maybe if you couldn't think of like a what if question, you could use the language device metaphors to explain or understand what your group members will be saying. And that could be a creative strategy as well. Just using like or as in order to understand what they're trying to tell you. And then my discussion question is, how can group members show an active participation in creative problem solving? So with everything I went over, I think it's really important to reemphasize that non-judgmental factor, and maybe with this question, keep that in mind.
Hi, my name is Akshay, and I'll be discussing about the problem-solving realities that we face during decision making. So in this section, I'll be discussing the problems which many people face when they're trying to make a successful decision making or a meeting. And there are certain factors that influence the challenge or decision making. And also we shall discuss the outcomes and resolution discussed for study meeting. Okay, the first thing is politics. So in every other scenario, even during like a day-to-day life, we might not know, but there's politics taking every place in every other instance. Politics takes like a brutal stage during decision making, mainly during the organizational culture. It's like people are waiting for the one moment where one member is creating a mess and they wanna interrupt and like correct him to be the bigger person. So such instances are like mainly seen during decision making. And then if you see, not every other group member is concerned about the agenda or the main goal of the group meeting. They have their own personal like hidden agendas and personal interests that they are trying to achieve. So therefore, not every person cares about the common goal or the benefit of the group, but they're more rather concerned about their personal agendas. Even though we come all prepared for a successful meeting or where we're trying to make some agendas or new resolution, there are some people who have preferences that influence how we interact and vote even before a decision needs to be made. These people don't wanna go with the flow of the group, but rather have their own choices that they would like to see go in motion. Therefore, there are even instances where psychologists confirm that, like, there's a confirmation bias. It is a tendency to reject information that contradicts our perceived views while accept them as true and convincing that which confirms our preferences. Now, these preferences can be moderated by combination of open conversation, specific aims, and the application of suitable structured procedures. So basically, such members are are willing to go any way just so that people just so they can achieve their preferences and have the meeting go their way. Now, the third factor that influences a successful meeting would be power. Even though you think the group decision is about a unity forming, sometimes there's that one person who is in charge of how the forms, or how the flow is supposed to be made. He's probably the leader of the group, or like someone experienced who has a say in how the motion is supposed to be set, and he has the power to make decisions on how a resolution proposed can be accepted or declined. So indirectly, power is similar to like politics, but at like a highly influential level. Then there are certain organizational cultures. These cultures have the so that they can describe the values or the norms, or they're trying to make up a shared environment for for an organization or a culture. Basically, these groups are trying to create a group where they are able to discuss certain code of conduct and behavior, or like just trying to make certain forms or norms for the proper working of a group. This You can consider them as like a union party or something, where people are trying to make rules for a place or a institution.
CPS, or creative problem solving, is a natural thinking process for working through challenges originally described by Alex Osborne. CPS includes tools for improving performance within the process to help us reach more creative solutions to the problems that arise in life. We use CPS because it gets us to novel solutions, it keeps us focused and on track, and takes us to a point where we can actually make our creative ideas happen. We can employ CPS for any issues over which we have ownership and motivation and that require imaginative thinking. So it works with personnel challenges at home, in school classrooms, within organizations, and with groups or individually. CPS is divided into stages to move through one at a time, although you may find yourself at different starting points for different situations. The clarifying stage involves exploring the vision and formulating the challenge. These inform the rest of the process. It is important to have a clearly stated challenge to move forward. The ideate stage is where the ideas happen. The more ideas you have, the more likely you are to have a truly novel, useful idea. From this multitude of ideas, you then choose what you will do to address your challenge. Now it is time to develop your idea. Here, you analyze the aspects of the idea and improve upon it. This is the time to make it a truly workable solution. In the implement stage, you have a solution on hand, and you must explore acceptance and formulate a plan. In this stage, you work through the details of what needs to happen, by when, and by whom. In each stage, we employ both divergent thinking, generating many possibilities, and convergent thinking, narrowing down to the best options. There are a lot of different tools that help us through each stage. These tools help groups get unstuck when working with a difficult challenge, stay on track, be their most creative, and reach consensus. CPS is a facilitated process. When we choose someone to facilitate, it allows us to stay devoted to the process. The facilitator's main job is to run how the group works together and the steps they take. The facilitator does not participate in the content, meaning they do not generate ideas or give opinions. The only decisions they make are related to what the group does within the session. The facilitator is an objective person who is solely focused on helping the group to effectively and efficiently obtain their stated objectives. The facilitator is a very important role that takes knowledge and practice. The qualities of a good facilitator are open-mindedness, good thinking skills, awareness of the group's needs, and flexibility. A good facilitator is an expert in the process. They bring focus and structure, organize information, promote different viewpoints, ask for feedback, celebrate the progress of the group, and encourage participation from everyone. Throughout a session, they choose tools that will help the group to be effective, efficient, and of course, creative. A good CPS session leaves the client feeling productive, excited, and prepared to move into action to make their creative solution a reality.
Okay, that was our presentation for Chapter 9. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you learned something. Thank you.